This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be? Me, your me, Louie T. Welcome to lockdown coverage, week number 14 in the National Football League. Los Angeles Rams hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles coming off of a tough loss, their first in forever. Last week to the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. And I knew that would serve as a bit of a wake-up call for them. When you kind of get into this whole phase and mindset of playing teams that are lesser than you, you can fall into the trap of thinking, I can just show up and we'll win. When you play the 49ers, the Bears, the Broncos, the Cowboys without Zeke Elliott, you can fall into the trap of thinking, I can just show up because I'm better and I'll prevail. That wasn't the case last week against Seattle. And they needed a game like that to prepare them for what was ahead in Los Angeles versus the Rams. Now, the Rams are one of the most high-flying teams in the league. They lead the league in most points per game. Conversely, they don't give up a ton of points either. And so they've been playing outstanding football themselves. First-year head coach Sean McVay has the Rams on the cusp of not only making the postseason, but winning the division. And so they're playing with an abundance of confidence. They've won some big games of late, including the Saints at home, snapping the Saints' 9-game winning streak that they had themselves. So, or 8-game, game winning streak that they had going on. So these were two teams that were really confident in their abilities and their ability to get it done. And you were looking at a situation with two second-year quarterbacks. Remember, and these two will forever be linked with one another. You've got Jared Goff, #1 overall pick. Rams took him in the draft, traded up to get him. Meanwhile, Eagles did the same, but did it for Wentz at #2. And so they're always going to have their careers compared and contrast with one another. And it just so happens that both were having career years in year two. Both were on the way to leading their teams to the playoffs. Both were on their way potentially to leading their teams to division titles in just their second seasons. Both were looking like future stalwarts at the quarterback position for their teams and for this league, for that matter, for years to come going into this game. Now, that is still the case for both of these guys. But the fortunes of one of their seasons changed dramatically towards the end of this game. And, of course, we'll talk about the Carson Wentz injury and what it means for this Eagles football team moving forward. I liken it to the last two seasons of the two teams that were hot, that came off the pace, that were trendy picks, sort of like this Eagles team. This is the third straight year we've had a team start the season like gangbusters, come out of the gate flying, have their team playing outstanding football. The quarterback has his name in the hat for the MVP trophy. And then he goes down with an injury towards the latter portion of the regular season, isn't able to help his team come postseason, and that team then bows out in their first game of the postseason. Now, the book has not been written completely on this Eagles season in 2017, but needless to say, no Carson Wentz probably equals early exit from the postseason in the rough, tough, and rugged NFC conference this season. As a matter of fact, the Eagles are not even guaranteed to get a first-round bye after this injury. So a lot of things can change dramatically for this Eagles football team over the next 3 weeks if they don't take care of business. But this feels like 2015 and Andy Dalton in the Cincinnati Bengals. This feels like 2016 and Derek Carr in the Oakland Raiders. Carson Wentz injury affecting this Eagles season, you can't put into words. He was having an MVP type season. He was going to win the MVP this year. There was no ifs, ands, or buts in my mind. And the game that he was playing in this particular game was solidifying that. And To see him go down to an injury makes me sick to my stomach. It honestly does. I hate to see teams who work this hard all year long to put themselves in a position that the Eagles have put themselves in, to have everything pretty much dashed with one fell swoop in one play. And that's essentially what happened. And it didn't look like a play that would tear an ACL. It looked like a nondescript play. I mean, hell, he finished out, I want to say, the next drive before he came out. I don't think that was the last play and then he came out. I think he might have actually stayed in, played a couple more plays, and then after they scored the touchdown, you see him in the tent, and then you see him walk into the locker room. So we didn't even know what happened. Everyone was thinking, oh, he's got a concussion. And all the while, he's being checked out for a torn ACL, which we later would learn that it was confirmed. And in fact, he had a torn ACL. So Eagles won the battle, but they lost the war, losing Wentz for the season. They won the game, and that's nice. And that could be the difference between them getting the 1, the 2, or the 3 seed in the NFC conference now that you beat the Rams. If the Rams end up, let's say the Rams end up 11-5 this year, and so do the Eagles, that win over the Rams could be the difference between them getting the 2 seed or the 3 seed and getting that first round bye. However, you would much take Carson Wentz. You would trade this loss in a heartbeat, or trade this win in a heartbeat for a loss and Wentz back for the remainder of the season. So it's not an equal trade-off here. But let's talk about this game quickly. I want to get to your comments, things you have to say, and then we'll get back to Monday Night Football in its entirety. The Eagles in this game were phenomenal on the offensive side of football. And it is exactly what I expected from Wentz and his offense to bounce back after the lackluster performance versus Seattle. And I actually didn't think they were terrible against Seattle. I thought they made mistakes against Seattle. Well, they cleaned those mistakes up. He was sharp in this game. Torrey Smith made some plays. Alshon Jeffrey made some plays. Everybody was making plays. Burton made some plays. Everyone was chipping in, doing their part, because you knew you had to score 30+ to beat the Rams. That was a requisite if you were looking to get a win on the road. And they were in the dead heat of a battle, and they were prepared to take it the distance and get the win. And if that meant scoring 40, they were willing to do it. And ultimately, they ended up getting 40. But 37 would have been enough, which is what they had before the end of the game. Laterals turned into a touchdown by the Eagles. So offensively, I thought they bounced back beautifully in this game. Jay Ajayi, I thought, ran it well on the ground. I thought they looked like a well-oiled machine. I thought they looked like the team that had reeled off 9 straight victories. They looked like that team. And that's what I was expecting. That's why I picked them to win the game. Now, I knew it was going to be a tough ask of their defense to stop the Rams, but they did it for the most part. Now, I thought the Rams shot themselves in the foot throughout the course of the game. Jared Goff was not as sharpest. We've seen him play better. Thought he left some points out on the football field, but that's nor here nor there. They had done enough to win the football game. And Nicholas Foles, I thought he came in and he did a quality job, which you would expect from a veteran like Nicholas Foles. He came in the game and pretty much steadied the ship, kept them where they needed to be in terms of being even keel, and got them to win. He made some crucial throws down the stretch to convert some critical third downs to keep the football away from the Rams and ultimately get them down into scoring range to put the game on ice. So I thought Nicholas Foles was outstanding in this football game in his relief of Carson Wentz. You go to the Rams side of things, I thought there were some opportunities for plays to be made in the game. You got guys running open, and like I said, Goff wasn't his normal self that we've seen this year. You got guys running in the back of the end zone wide open, and he's underthrowing them. He should have been picked off on at least 3 different occasions by Bradham in this game. One in the end zone where he severely underthrows a corner route wide ass open. That corner route from the slot is one of the hardest routes to defend down by the goal line, especially to the wide side of the field. There's so much space out there, so much space you have to defend as a slot corner or a nickel defender, it's almost not fair. And the receiver had one to the outside. All Goff had to do was put air on it, and it's an easy touchdown. He underthrows it. Should have been picked off by Nigel Bradham. There's another throw over the middle of the field. If he put some air on it, it's a completion and a big chunk play. Instead, it should have been picked off by Nigel Bradham. And so it wasn't the best performance by Jared Goff. That being said, though, they were right in the game where they needed to be. The defense forced an early turnover of Carson Wentz on a tip ball that ends up getting picked off. I'm afraid you're going to lose that same corner, number 21, and I can't think of his name right now, but he later on in the game went down, non-contact injury, grasping that ankle region. That looks like an Achilles if I've ever seen one. And I'm pretty sure you've probably already heard, I haven't heard the press conference by Sean McVay, but I'm pretty sure that he's already come out and said whether that was an Achilles tear or not. But that all the signs are there. You know, and again, I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, but I am aware of what an Achilles tear looks like, and that one looks exactly like an Achilles tear. So I'd be shocked to find out that he didn't tear his Achilles. Hopefully that is not the case, but it was a great interception early. It set up the Rams for points, and it sucks because he was playing good football, but he went down, and I think he might have torn his Achilles tendon. But in any event, you played well enough to win this game on offense. It wasn't your sharpest performance by any stretch of the imagination, but it should have been good enough. You scored 35, and granted, the defense did help you with that one turnover, but you scored 35. That's supposed to hold up. But the defense got gashed in this game. They got gashed. And it wasn't just one guy. Everyone was involved. Eagles had it going offensively. And they're a tough team to stop. When Wentz is escaping the pocket, extending plays, using his legs to pick up yards, when guys like Torrey Smith are getting free, Alshon Jeffrey making catches off the blades of grass, the end zone catch, the catch on the third down. I mean, he made some ridiculous catches in this game, did Alshon Jeffrey. I never, ever trust a man with two first names. I mean, everybody was contributing for that Eagles offense, so it was rough on the Rams. It's pretty rough on them. But the Rams continue to show me that they're a damn good football team. Even in this loss, they're going to be a tough out in the NFC. Whoever draws their card, and I think the Rams, when it's all said and done, probably going to be a wild card. I still think Seattle's going to win the division. I haven't moved off that spot. I still think the Seahawks are going to win that division. This is a big game next week, obviously. Division on the line. Rams win that game, they win the division. Because with 2 games left, all they got to do is win a game. And they still have another date with the 49ers at home. They're going to win a game down the stretch. So, in my mind, a simple victory, and easier said than done, on the road versus Seattle gets you the victory. Up 2 with 2 left, all you'd have to do at that point is just win a game. So, but I don't see it happening. I don't see them going to Seattle and winning. I just don't. So we'll see what happens there. But they were game. They were game against the Eagles. They were ready for the challenge. They just couldn't get that one stop down the stretch. Even when Nicholas Foles entered the game, there were some crucial third downs, some situations where they needed to just get off the field, get the football back to their offense, and they just simply couldn't do it. And so you had some injuries along the offensive line. Whitworth went down. He did return to the game, but then you had another offensive lineman go down. I don't know if he returned to the game or not. So at one point, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I heard them say, you're down to your last reserve offensive lineman in the game. So you had some things going on up front that didn't bode well for you. But nonetheless, you gave it a run. And that's a talented Rams football team. And like I said, they're going to be a problem for whomever draws their card in the playoffs. They're going to be a problem because that's a damn good football team. But they weren't able to get it done versus the Philadelphia Eagles, who, like I said, win the battle, lose the war by losing Carson Wentz for the season with an ACL tear. Just that's sickening news. You know what I mean? Like, again, it reminds me of 2015 with the Cincinnati Bengals and Andy Dalton. It reminds me of last year with Derek Carr and the Raiders. seasons unfulfilled because you don't know what could have happened if that quarterback would have stayed healthy. But this is a league based off of health. And we sit here, we moan and we groan and we bitch and complain about injuries, but they matter, especially ones that happen at the most important position in all of the sport. So you lose your quarterback, one like Carson Wentz who's irreplaceable, there's not much you can do. You know, Nicholas Foles could come in and fill in for a week or two, but when shit gets real in the playoffs where everybody's good, you know, when you're not playing the Raiders or the Cowboys, and I'm not saying the Cowboys aren't good, but when you're not playing one of these lower tier level teams, when every week in the playoffs you look up, it's Carolina this week, it's Minnesota next week, it's New Orleans, it's Atlanta. It's not looking too good for the Philadelphia Eagles with Nicholas Foles at quarterback. Not saying he can't get it done, but he's not Carson Wentz. We know that for a fact. So it's pretty disappointing, to say the least, just to see their season potentially ruined because of this injury late in the season. And again, on a nondescript play. It's not like he was in the pocket and somebody fell on his leg, or, you know, he was running and, you know, sort of like Robert Griffin III, he's diving for a first down. He was in the end zone and he was on top of another player, and the guy hit his leg and just didn't seem like much. So, sucks. But in any event, Eagles do get the win, 43-35 over the Rams. Get to 11-2, clinch the NFC East in the process, and now it's all about that number one seed in the NFC playoffs. They're going to have to hold off the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to have to hold off this Rams team. They're going to have to hold off a slew of teams. The New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers. They've got a ton of teams that they've got to hold off to remain number one or number two for that matter. They could easily go from the number one seed, number two seed, to the number three seed, number four seed in the NFC. Lose these last three games with Nicholas Foles at the helm, and you go from the number one seed to potentially the number four seed in the NFC. And I can tell you this much right now. You don't want any part of one of those NFC South teams in the first round. If you can avoid them, I'd avoid them at all costs. And you may not be able to, because they may get three teams in. Both wild cards may go to the NFC South when it's all said and done. Atlanta may sneak in. Carolina and New Orleans look like they're a shoo-in for the postseason. So you may not be able to avoid any of the NFC South teams. But if you can avoid playing in the first round and wild card weekend altogether, that's the best move, especially without Carson Wentz. That is the absolute best move, best case scenario for the Philadelphia Eagles. For the Rams, it's simple. Win next week. Win next week, you win the division, and then we can start talking crazy about seeding and trying to get the number one or number two seed and getting the first round bye. Win next week first, on the road at Seattle. Do that, and then we can start having some crazy conversations. Lose that game, and I'll continue to say the same thing I've said all season. This is cute, but you're not winning the division yet. You're not ready for it. So I need proof. I don't believe you. You need more people. Well, here's your chance. You can get all the people you want, gather them up, and get them to tell me all in unison, we win in the damn division by going and winning in Seattle next week. Good luck. You're going to need it. Let's get to any comments that may be out there. And I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting Monday Night Football. Cloud says, this hurt, man. Damn, we can never have good things. I feel so bad for you. I really do. I honestly do, man. I know the feeling. I felt the same way with Robert Griffin III in 2012. Like, if he didn't get hurt, I felt like we could have won the Super Bowl that year. That's how well he was playing. So I know the feeling, man. And he was never the same. At least I feel like Wentz will be back, and he'll be back better than ever. Just like Tom Brady when he came back from his ACL tear. Robert Griffin III was never the same. So, and the situation was never the same. So, at least there's solace in knowing that when he comes back, he's still going to be Carson Wentz. You don't got to worry about no nonsense. Cloud says, also, this eliminates the whole we haven't beaten any good teams argument. Also, I'm hearing that Wentz may miss the first couple of weeks next season. Are ACL injuries that bad? They're usually 6 to 9 month recovery timetables. He's a quarterback, so I suspect that he'll be able to make it back in time. The question will become then, will he get enough practice time for you to be comfortable with him starting? Because let's just take the whole 6-month approach. Let's just say his recovery time is 6 months. He's a quarterback, so it's not like he's a running back or a receiver or anything. He's a quarterback, so let's just go with 6 months. So 6 months from now would put you square dead in June, right? It's plenty of time for him to come back and be ready. But since this is not Wentz's first ACL tear. He tore his ACL. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this. I believe he tore his ACL while at either in high school. I think he tore it in high school. That's why he was so severely under-recruited and ended up going to North Dakota State. It's because he tore his ACL like in his junior or senior year, and there wasn't enough tape for him to get recruited by a major D1 program. So I don't think this is his first ACL. Now, it may be the first in that particular knee. I don't know if it's the same knee that he did it to the first time, but in any event, now you Eagles fans should be able to speak to that. You've probably heard all of his injury history after him tearing it. They probably chronicled his injury history since birth, ever since the injury. So you probably can tell me better than I can tell you, but I remember scouting him coming into the draft a couple years ago, and I think one of the because everybody want to know, why did you not go to a major D1 program? You were too good to be at North Dakota State. And I think that's why, because he got injured. But in any event, this isn't his first rodeo with an ACL tear. He's familiar with what's going to happen next and the procedure and the rehab and the timetable. I think he's going to be back by June, which will put him back in time for training camp. And then he'll have to work his way back slowly. You take care of him in the preseason, give him a little bit of reps, and I think he'll be back by the time the season starts next year. I'm not buying the whole he'll be on the PUP list to start the season or anything crazy like that. I surmise he'll be back before the season starts. Cloud says, we'll get a bye. I don't see us losing against the Giants. Raiders, it's a little debatable, but our defense is good enough to stop them. Plus, they're inconsistent. Cowboys can have the last game. I think you're right. I mean, even if you don't beat the Cowboys, which I think you can still beat the Cowboys, even if you don't beat them, you're not losing to the Giants and the Raiders. I think you can beat both of those teams personally. So, Thomas Salvati says, do you think Carson will bounce back or be like an RG3? I just answered this. Crazy that you asked me that, because I just answered that. I think he'll be back and he'll be better than ever. ACL injuries are the thing of the past. Guys come back from those things better than ever, almost like Tommy John surgery in baseball. These surgeries go flawlessly. Guys come back stronger, and he'll be fine. I have no doubts he'll be Carson Wentz of old when he returns. Dylan Graham says, we just need to win one game and get a bye, and then 2 wins to get home field. So you're going to win 1. I think you're going to win 2 when it's all said and done. So I'm not worried. As long as Nicholas Foles doesn't come in here and act like Nicholas Foles, you'll be fine. FBG Tony says, Wentz injury saddened me, and I'm no Eagles fan. I wish him a quick recovery and pray for a full recovery for a great QB and a great God-fearing man. As do I. Again, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't want to see anybody get hurt like that. And again, I just hate seeing teams have to go through this. The player himself, the team, that locker room, seeing their leader go down, and then the fan base. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, man. I really wouldn't. Cloud said they elevated their play after Wentz's injury. They did, but that's short-lived. You can only elevate your play. There were so many magical plays he's made this year that bailed this team out. You can't replicate that kind of stuff. So how much can you elevate your play to help your team win in his absence on a permanent basis now? That was temporary. They didn't know he was out for the season at the time. They just knew he went to the locker room. For all they knew, that he had a concussion. Now, obviously, you get to the sideline and everybody's like, well, what happened to Carson? And one person says, hey, man, he might have torn his ACL. That spreads like wildfire around the sideline. So they knew what he was dealing with, but still, they didn't know the severity. So Reby says, this hurt. Peace. You know me, Lou. I'm never giving up on my Eagles. I'm confident we can win the rest of the games, or at least 2 out of 3. Now, the playoffs are a different story, given the NFC is so tough. And I said the same thing. You can get by these final 3 weeks, get you a first-round bye, possibly get #1 seed. But it's a different animal when you get into the NFC conference and it being so tough this year. Cloud says, yeah, they lost that corner for the year. Forgot his name. Also, Sidney Jones can practice now. If he were to return, do you think he could have a Marshawn Lattimore impact? No, not this late in the season, in his rookie season. Maybe next year he might be able to come in and start shutting it down. But I think it's too late for him this year. And remember, if I'm not mistaken, he's coming off of a Achilles. That's worse than an ACL. So he needs time. Reby says, I want to keep Burton. I think Selleck is contracted through 2018. Wonder if we can keep him somehow before Selleck leaves. Yeah, Burton is a nice pass-catching piece. I like him a lot. I think Trey Burton is a guy that you got to find a way to keep on your roster. John Perez says, Eagles can't and won't win the Super Bowl without Wentz. My Eagle fan friend is probably in tears right now. Yeah, that's a tough one to stomach, man. Been there, done that, know how it feels. So, trust me, I can sympathize with you on this one. We weren't a #1 seed, though. That's the only thing. Like, we were still sneaking in the back door with ours. We had gotten hot at the right time, though. But we were still having to win 7 straight to get to 10-6, to backdoor our way into the postseason, win the division, get the home playoff game. But we still weren't a #1, #2 seed. We weren't getting a first-round bye like you guys. You guys were favorites in the NFC. I mean, you were that good. Reby says, I can still see us winning out. No disrespect. But midgets, Raiders, depending on if we rest our starters for that Dallas game, I was confident we would win when Carson was here. I still think you can win out. But it wouldn't shock me if you lost one of those games somewhere along those last 3. And it all depends on, do you even need that last Dallas game? Like last year, you didn't need it. Do you need it this year? Or they didn't need it last year? Do you need it this year? I don't know. Cloud says, I don't know about past ACL injuries, if he had any, but I do recall a wrist injury in college. I'm aware of the wrist injury. I'm talking about he had a major injury in college, in high school. And I'm pretty sure it was an ACL, but don't quote me on that. But I'm sure that it was an ACL because it cost him recruiting. Kyle Stokes says, do you think Wentz will have an injury-prone career if he keeps putting himself out there like Andrew Luck has, or does his size make him more durable than Luck? Anytime you run the football the way Wentz does, it puts you at risk. That's always been the dilemma for these quarterbacks who love to escape the pocket and use their legs to extend plays. The reason why Cam Newton is always banged up, he's a lot bigger, though. Newton can take that kind of punishment. Luck is a big guy. Luck is just as big as Wentz, not as tall, but Luck is just as big. He's 6'4", and Andrew Luck's like 235 pounds, but he can't keep taking that punishment. Wentz is like 6'5", 235. He's like the same size as Andrew Luck. But you can't take that kind of punishment unnecessarily. I think he'll be fine, though. I don't think he's going to be injury prone, to answer your question. Reby says, we will get a bye. Carson will be back. I'm not listening to the naysayers. I still believe. Damn it. We're so primed for it this year. It meaning the Super Bowl, shaking my head. I hear you, Reby. Don't listen to people like me, because I'm telling you right now, I don't see you getting to the Super Bowl without Carson Wentz. It could happen. Everybody could rally around Nicholas Foles. It's not like Nicholas Foles is a bum. He can play in this league. Remember, he was 27-2 one year under Chip Kelly. It's not like he's a bum. He's not mincemeat, but he is Nicholas Foles. He damn sure ain't Carson Wentz. And in the NFC this year, where a mobile quarterback helps you against the likes of the Falcons and their fast defense, the Vikings and their fast defense, the Panthers and their defense, Saints, even their defense can do a little something. It sure would have been nice to have a mobile quarterback like Carson Wentz. So, in any event, Matthew Lynn says, Finn's playing a hell of a game right now. I know. I watched the first half, and I'm about to jump into this second half. John Perez says, as sore as I was when he torched my Redskins twice, I hate to see Wentz go down the way that he did. A phenomenal player and a good dude. Hope he gets well. I echo those sentiments wholeheartedly. Reby says, thank you, Louie, for always keeping me abreast. Your knowledge of the game and info you give is untouched. I appreciate that, Reby. And I'm glad you continue to watch, man. And we're going to break down your Eagles. Come hell or high water. By hook or by crook, they're going to find a way to get that first round bye and potentially the number 1 seed. What you do with it, that's another story. But y'all going to get it. Because your schedule down the stretch is easy enough for you to handle, even with Nicholas Foles at the helm. So, in any event, that's going to do it for me here on Lockdown Coverage for Week 14 of the National Football League. We'll get back to Monday Night Football. Like my man Matthew Lynch said, Dolphins playing a hell of a game, looking to play spoilers. Much like the Ravens, I feel like they're going to fall just short. Patriots are going to get on their horse in the fourth quarter, come back, take that game from them. But, hey, nothing like a little bit of family business to make things interesting late in the season when a team really needs it. So, like we saw with the Ravens, you can get a hell of a push from one of the teams in the division, man. Family members always know how to push the right buttons to make you panic. We'll see if the Patriots know how to defuse the Miami Dolphins in the second half of this game. I'm your man, Louie T. As always, Lockdown Coverage, holding you down. Go ahead and watch the rest of Monday Night Football and then come join me at its conclusion for Monday Night Football Overtime. Eagles win over the Rams, 43-35, clinch the NFC East division at 11-2. Rams fall to 9-4, just one game ahead of the Seattle Seahawks for the NFC West lead. And now they've got a season-defining game next week on the road versus Seattle for the division for all intents and purposes. You lose that game and you're not out of winning the division, but you win that game and you're probably going to win that division. We'll see what happens. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you a little bit later on. Join me for Monday Night Football Overtime.